Alright guys, this is Car Audio Education number 11, and this is about the importance of signal in car audio. Now you may have the other 10 episodes down pat, but if you don't have this right, it can still come out sounding like garbage. Here's what a signal is in car audio, where it goes and where it starts. The first thing here is music. What type of music do you listen to? And mainly how it's recorded. If you've got a live performance or just some very old music that may not have been recorded professionally, like if it was something done in a basement, in the wide open field or somewhere, it won't have as good a quality to start with as, say, something, a new pop album in a studio. So how it's recorded definitely matters, what level it's recorded at. Most new recordings of studio albums have very high levels, properly recorded, and will give very clear, realistic sound. The other thing that matters is the audio file format that you store it in. So if you've got a highly compressed MP3 file, then you might be losing out quality. If it's above 128 megabits per second, then you're fine with an MP3. Again, it has to do with how it was formatted to begin with. So the music that you listen to matters. Now the next thing here is your input source. How are you playing this in your car? There are several input sources. There are CDs, USB, AM, FM, satellite radio, and Bluetooth. AM/FM is probably the least accurate or sound quality wise of these. Even if you have HD radio, the signal is really not comparable to a CD, USB, or satellite radio. All the rest of these are pretty well fine. Satellite radio, Bluetooth, USB, and CDs provide very high quality sound, especially these days. The next thing in the signal pathway is the head unit. The head unit has pre-outs on the back of it, RCA outputs for your amplifiers. Back in episode 5 I told you to have 4-volt pre-outs if you possibly could. But the other thing I didn't mention is a 24-bit digital to analog converter. I didn't mention this because most head units do have a digital 24-bit digital to analog converter, but some of the cheaper ones do have a 16-bit. And that is not preferred. So make sure it has a 24-bit digital to analog converter and 4-volt pre-outs. So let's go on to the next piece in the pathway. So this is head unit here. The next thing that it goes to is an amplifier. So your signal travels from your head unit to the amplifier, and you have the gain on the amplifier. So what the gain is it's not a volume knob. It is the input sensitivity of the amplifier. What this means is that you're not turning up the volume per se. Let's say you leave your head unit on 30 volume and you mess with your gain. Well, you're still at 30 volume on the head unit. But when you jack up your gain, you're increasing the amplifier's sensitivity to that volume. When you increase an amplifier's sensitivity, you can think of it like if you've ever been to a conference where the speaker has microphone trouble. Like he's got his microphone on his in his hand and he's trying to speak, but the microphone goes whoop, whoop when he gets too close to it. That's because the microphone is too sensitive to his input. So that's what's happening to an amp if you have the gain too high. You're introducing a lot of extra noise, and that's why you want these strong signals going in. Now, between these three here, you have wiring. And let me just put it simply, the wiring matters. You need to have high quality or good RCA cables going from your head unit to your amplifier, as well as good power and ground wires. If you watched episode 8, I believe, of wiring amplifiers, you should know all about this wiring going from the head unit to the amplifier and for the amplifier. So watch episode 8 if you don't understand the wiring part of it. And then obviously from the amplifier to the speaker you want big enough wires so that the speaker can get the full output of the amplifier. Let's go back to this voltage here because this is the main point I'm wanting to make. The reason I said in episode 5, go back and watch episode 5 on head units. The reason I said to get 4-volt pre-outs is so that you do not have to turn your gain up so much. If you have a stronger signal going into the amplifier, you do not need the amplifier to be sensitive to that signal. And if you can turn the sensitivity down, you don't get all the noise and all the bad stuff that comes with having your gain jacked up. If you have a head unit with 4-volt pre-outs, you can hook it right into your amplifier with some good high quality wires, and you can expect a low gain with low noise, and you still get all the output that you want. But let's say you have a head unit with 2-volt outputs, and you hook that straight into your amplifier. Well, then you have a much higher gain, and you could be introducing more noise into the signal. Now, if you were like me and wasn't smart earlier on and had a head unit with 2 volts, well, then you can do a few things about that. So here's your head unit with 2 volts. You can add a line driver in the middle of this. Along the RCA wires, you can add a line driver, and then that will boost the voltage going into the amplifier, so that you can continue to have that nice low gain and low noise. There are a couple things that you can use to do this, but let me say that again. If you've got a head unit with 2-volt pre-outs, all is not lost. You can get a line driver or something equivalent to that to boost the signal so that you can keep your gain low on your amplifier. So here are some options. A line driver is the pretty typical thing. It usually takes a 2 or 4-volt pre-out and boosts it up to a high level like 7 or 8 volts, and these usually cost between $30 and $100. Now, a line output converter is just like a line driver, except it takes the speaker wires from your head unit and converts them into RCAs for your amplifier. These usually cost $30 to $60. A base processor is typically just for subwoofers. They usually cost between $50 and $150. With this, you'll also get a little EQ usually for your subwoofer. If you have subwoofer issues, like you just can never seem to get your bass right, this will have usually a little something to help along with that, in addition to boosting the signal. And then another thing you can get is an equalizer. Instead of using the one on your stereo that came with your stereo, you can get a separate equalizer, and that usually has a line driver built in. Again, all of these have line drivers built in. Line driver is the big word that you need to know here. All of these have line drivers. They boost the signal going into the amplifier. Yeah, an equalizer does just what your stereo equalizer does, except it also boosts the voltage. Those cost between $70 and $200 usually. And then the last thing, and it's a very expensive thing, but it does a whole lot, is to get a digital sound processor. And this is something that you mount in your trunk. It has a fuse. It does everything. They're usually anywhere from $250 to $1,250, which is a lot of bucks. That's like a whole herd of bucks. Yeah, a digital sound processor is the end-all be-all of this. If you're going to have high-quality sound, that's the thing to have. I don't recommend doing any of this. What I recommend doing is starting out with a high quality head unit to begin with. That's pretty much my synopsis on car audio signal pathways. Let me recap a bit. So the signal in car audio starts with music. How it's recorded matters, and the file format that you use matters. From your music, it goes to your input source, or that music was printed on a CD, it was put into a USB, it was played over the radio, satellite, or Bluetooth, so that affects the quality of music. From then on, it goes to your head unit. That head unit can have either 2 or 4 volt pre-outs, and it could have a 24-bit DAC. I hope it does. If you have 4 volt pre-outs, you can go straight to your amplifier and keep a low gain. From your amplifier, it goes to your speaker. And between the head unit, amplifier, and speaker, you need to have quality wiring. If you don't have 4 volt pre-outs, have 2 volt pre-outs on the back of your stereo, you'll need one of these to help boost the signal. These cost money, so I recommend starting out with a high quality head unit. It's not something you want to skimp on. So I think this video is really important because most people that do this completely backwards. A lot of people will go out and buy an awesome subwoofer or really good component speakers, pay a bunch of money, and they think that that is going to sound really amazing, but they forget about everything beforehand. They don't have a good amplifier, they don't have a good signal, they don't have a good head unit, they listen to crappily recorded music, so they are never really satisfied with that amazing pair of speakers they've got, or that amazing subwoofer, because they didn't do anything right before it. So that's why this signal pathway is so important. Thank you for watching this. I appreciate your time. Please leave questions if you have them, and I will do my best to answer them. And subscribe for more car audio information. Have a nice day.